Yo, so back with another iPad assisted video, and I'm in a hotel room, if you can tell. Temporarily living like a homeless person. It's rather strange between locations. Was in Bali, then was in Poland, then was in Ireland, now I'm back in London. Very stark contrast. And I want to speak about something I've been thinking about actually a large amount in the past month, especially since I was away and then came back, but also reflecting on because of the past few months that I tweeted about a little bit, made a few videos kind of touching on. And then also, I guess I tweeted, because I tweet a lot of shit that comes to mind, something I tweeted about today, which is environment and the absolute critical importance of it. And something I've always kind of known that, I've always known this, and I've got this right a lot of the time. But then on reflection, when I've not felt my best, which I'll go into in a second, a bit of story time, it's when I've not focused on it enough and given it the weight that it deserves. And by environment, I mean, the way I'm describing it anyway, the way I'm thinking about it, not the fucking dictionary definition, is your location. Like your physical location, whether that's London, Bali, Dubai, New York, Marbella, fucking Leeds, York, where I'm from, for example. Your actual, I guess, premises where you physically live in that location, because that can make a huge difference. And I guess for most people that's your home and your office, or it's the same thing, like it has been for me in a lot of my life. And then the people that you surround yourself with, either as a result of these things or kind of intentionally within these things. And that's your environment. And I want to give a story time, well, not story time, maybe a little bit of that. The context of why I think I'm qualified to speak on this and kind of give advice on it in some ways is, yeah, so going back, I mean, as I've shared on the pod many times, like broadly speaking, been a full-time founder now for like 7 years, you could say 7.5 years. Even 8 years maybe. I guess like properly for like 7 and a bit years, which is mad. I've learned a lot during that time in business, in life, and probably only now at 29, crazily, feel like I'm starting to fucking get things. Not just in business, but in life, and like putting it all together and the pieces start to make sense. Maybe that's normal, maybe it's not, but I feel like a bit of a late bloomer in that in some ways. Or I'm gonna suddenly realize that actually everyone's fucking making it up and feels the same in the sense that they're only just figuring it out now. But yeah, so this environment, my environment when I grew up was fucking normal, right? You know, middle class, family, brother, went to a normal school, state school, didn't have much money, but you know, we weren't fucking on the streets dying either. So I guess pretty fucking normal, like genuinely normal, but don't come from money. And then I went to uni, which was, again, pretty fucking normal. Didn't like it, dropped out, went back a year later, did like a year and a bit, and then fully left. I'm gonna focus on the time that I became a full-time founder, I guess. I spent a few years traveling at that point. And this video might become something I didn't intend it to be, but, you know, traveling the world, this is my fucking earth. Spent like 2 years pretty much living nomadically, and this was fucking amazing for me because it opened up my eyes to different ways of doing things. I went to Bali for the first time, went to Australia for the first time, America, Singapore, fucking everywhere basically. I went for the first time in a sort of 2 year period, which was like 2017 to 2019, give or take, and I'm using rough numbers and rough dates, but you get the idea. And this was like my crazy nomadic time, and it opened up my eyes for so many things, and I'll come back to that in a second. And that was a great environment for me, even though it was many different ones. But, you know, I was going to cool places. Most importantly at this time, I was surrounding myself with other founders, which I didn't know at the time, and it really set the foundation and base of a lot of my network now, and the way I've gone about meeting people through people and compounding on that, etc. And then I moved to my first sort of, you could say, fucking hustle house in many ways, in like shit picture of a house. Ignore these pictures, it's purely illustrate the concept. 2019 to, I guess, the end of 2019, you know, 6 months. I lived in a fucking Muse house in Kensington in London with a guy called Fred and a guy called Seb. Fred's the founder of Sanucci, one of my best mates, someone that I go back with a long time. And this was a sick environment as well, in some ways. In other ways, it wasn't as good. But actually living in one place and being able to lock down and live with other people doing similar shit just really enabled me to lock in and compound and have fun at the same time. Had my green Audi R8 fucking parked in the garage. I used to wake up this lady every single morning when I turned it on cold start. And I should have parked it on the street, but I had some strange feeling it would get stolen, even though it wouldn't have done back then, it might do now. But yeah, anyway, this was a cool setup. Then end of 2019, sort of start of 2020, I moved into this, I don't know why I'm doing circles, different colors, but like this like mega fucking like 2,500 square foot, 10 grand a month penthouse with a sick view of London, which was in Embassy Gardens. A lot of people know about that. It wasn't on my YouTube, it was pre-YouTube days. But this was probably the sickest place I ever lived and probably the best environment I can recall, at least for the time of my life. And this was sort of end of 2019 to about 2021. We used to have sick parties. It was me, Fred, and a guy called Connor. It's about a year and a half in total. Like end of 2019 to mid 2021. Like amazing vibes, sick physical location, great people around me. Not necessarily the best weather or the best location in many ways, but at the time I think like London was higher up on people's preferences. And that was just a sick environment to just make me feel like things were possible and also fucking enjoy the process. That period I probably look back at, maybe nostalgically now, but was like, for me, the ultimate combination of like, had some money, we're making money, we're all making money, but we're working hard, we're training hard, we're having sick parties, hanging out with beautiful girls, etc. Pretty much like every weekend it was something new, and I had a Ferrari downstairs, all this shit. It was just like peak youth, like kind of new money, I guess, in some ways. A lot of it was kind of cringe and I wouldn't do it now, but it was a sick environment and it really propelled me forward and my network forward as well in that time. And then I guess, I'm not going to go back too far, but then 2021 to 2023, it was kind of a step down in many ways. Like the business flopped, I started rebuilding my life, I guess, in many ways. Started the YouTube, started Space Goods, and this is where I lived in like still a sick flat, but it's like a 2-bed, non-penthouse. Yeah, I think it was like $5 a month rent or whatever. So it's still a nice place, don't get me wrong, but it felt like a step down mentally. And I felt like I'd gone from being this fucking winner that quite literally had everything I'd ever dreamed of in some ways, to like the lower levels of masculine desire at the time. Really enjoy that environment. And I guess, this was kind of the humbling I needed in some ways. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't fucking living on the streets, but it was a step down. And the fact it was a step down did hurt my mindset a bit and probably made me feel less like a fucking winner. Because I guess ultimately I wasn't, but I think losing that mindset is dangerous. And then, I'm just going to hurry this up a bit, 2023 to sort of 2024. And this critically was living with another founder friend, right? Well, actually two, a guy called Jack who runs Kanzuri, good mate, and a guy called Adam who runs Cranapore, kind of two different places. And then I moved on to another one and I lived in, again, a similar flat, better view this time because I found that views were really big for me. Still in London, but a lot of mates had started to leave. And I lived with, I guess, two different people. One that was kind of a founder, he wouldn't mind me saying that. He is a founder, but he wasn't doing as, wasn't scaling as hard as the other guys, and maybe it was a bit one-sided in terms of the stuff we talk about, and it was kind of me giving advice and him asking for advice rather than sharing ideas because we're on the same wavelength in terms of where our businesses were. And then he moved out and a guy moved in that wasn't even a founder, and it just felt like a bit of a different, nothing wrong with that by the way, but like it changed the dynamic of the conversations because we didn't just talk about business all the time, which is what I'm kind of into. And then I lived in Spain for like 6 weeks last year, which I thought was chasing a better environment, but actually wasn't ideal for me. Didn't speak Spanish, wrong time of year, didn't know that many people. And then to come back to probably actually the worst environment of my almost entire life. Like, in terms of the stuff I've controlled myself, was the 6 months I spent in this fucking Airbnb. It wasn't like full time, because I was away here and there, but like I was based here in a shitty part of London that I'm not even going to say. If you know me, I've tweeted about it, whatever. And this just ruined my mindset, because it wasn't even cheap. Like, it was an Airbnb, but it felt like shit compared to where I previously lived. It wasn't a penthouse, didn't have a sick view, didn't have the sauna, the underground parking, the gym that I was used to in every other place I'd ever lived in. And this sounds like frivolous and stupid, but I could afford to live in a nice place. And the irony was, I ended up paying like twice as much to live here as I did in the other places. And it really fucked, and that's not the only point here, but I'll get to what I'm saying in a second. I'm just setting the scene. So I've lived in all these different places, you know, probably the sickest place was kind of here. This was cool, this was cool. This was super exciting because it was earlier on, but the sickest one was definitely this blue one. And then these red ones were like, yeah, okay, but this green one just made me feel like, almost like I wasn't gonna make it, or like I hadn't made it, or like I wasn't in the process of making it. And I think that was the best example to me of like, oh fuck, I just rushed into this. I didn't curate my environment enough, given how self-aware I am about the things that get me going and don't. And, you know, it's the wrong combination of physical location, just wasn't near anything that I'd, you know, typically need to use, not even near my office, not even near some of my mates that still live here. It was the wrong, you know, physical place, like didn't have the view, flat was too small, wasn't a high floor that I'm quite big on, unless I'm living in a house or a villa. Didn't have the sauna that I want to use every day for like meditation purposes. And actually critically, just I felt like at this point in my life, a lot of my mates that ultimately had made all these places cool had left. And I didn't feel like that, they fucking had left. And they have left now. And leaving that place, I just got into a really bad headspace, honestly. Particularly sort of February, March this year, which I won't go into too much, and it sounds kind of stupid, but I think the biggest thing driving that was the fact this environment was wrong. And it's something that's so, might not seem it, but it's so easily controlled by anyone, especially us founders and people that want to be founders, and, you know, people that are entrepreneurially minded and don't have to go necessarily to one place for one job forever. So yeah, that's kind of like me setting the scene on my environmental history. And then coming off the back of this, where even though the business is growing and everything's actually going quite well, I just wasn't fucking enjoying it because my environment was wrong for me, and I'm self-aware about what I need and what I don't need. And then I did the cliche thing, I went back to fucking Bali for about a month. It was meant to be like 2 weeks, and it got extended to like actually nearly 5 weeks as of recently. And I just felt like a different person, because I guess this is my fucking depiction of a sun, by the way. I guess I associated it more with my earlier years of feeling fucking optimistic, super ambitious, super fast moving, like super free, which actually brings out the best work in me. And honestly, I did some of my best creative work in that like 4 or 5 week period than I'd done in the past like year. Even though people might assume, oh, you're in Bali, not working properly, but the environment for me works. Sun, great gyms, great food, everyone there is a founder, at least people I hang around with. I know lots of people that are founders and live there and have a pretty good network out there. And I guess there's the associative thing, like I said, of my earlier years. I thought back to that and it felt like, oh fuck yeah, this is a blast from the past in a good way. But also like the physical environment. You can get a sick villa, you know, live like a baller for not much money relative to other places like London and stuff. And yeah, that just reminded me of like, fuck, I've been like doing myself dirty by not necessarily not living in Bali, but not optimizing my environment enough and not putting enough importance on the critical importance of that. And I think you get the idea now. And I think environments have like primarily like three ways of impacting like your trajectory. And this is what I said in my tweet. Like, I think it's the most important thing to set the foundation of your ability to work towards being successful and be in the right mindset and place to do so, which is the foundation of everything really. The first thing is it can inspire you. And I guess like in my case, that was when I first like went to Bali and saw, wow, like it wasn't necessarily about the villas and shit. It was more like the environment's so different to anything I'd seen before. Like it physically looked different. All the people thought kind of a similar way. It made me realize that you can do and be anything anywhere. And I guess like another example, when I moved in that penthouse, it was like, fuck, I feel like we're actually making progress here. Even though the rent, like split between 3 people, wasn't anything crazy. It was similar to what I paid in the previous place, but like the mental shift of like, this is a fucking penthouse in central London sounds like flippant and, you know, arrogant, whatever, and flexy, and it kind of was, but it shifted like the paradigm of who I thought I was. And that sounds stupid, but that's how humans work. At least that's how I work. And it made me think bigger. And obviously that didn't all go perfectly, but definitely a valuable time. I think secondly, the environment you curate can actually help you meet others, which then you can end up living with and so on. So I met people in Bali that fucking helped me, well, I guess open my mind to possibilities I hadn't otherwise have thought of, you know, hanging around with people that weren't necessarily founders from my like background, etc., in uni before I left. And then thirdly, they can help you lock in and remove distractions. And I think all these things are relevant at different stages of life and not necessarily just tied to your age, but tied to your, you know, stage in the business where you're at. Lock in and remove distractions. And I guess an example of this is like, even the place I was living like a few months ago, like it had fucking building noise outside, which I didn't realise. And I couldn't lock in actually in the home office setup. Whereas previously when I lived on the 15th floor with a nice view, like literally just sound doesn't travel as much that far. And like my actual home office was a much better setup previously. Like, I loved having a sick view. I set it up with like neons and shit, and just, you know, just didn't bother in this place because I was there temporarily, and it just never felt like it was my space to do what I'm best at, which is, I guess, a range of things, but ultimately didn't let me lock in and do that in the same way. So yeah, like I'm rambling as always. I feel like this one more than anything, but I think it's so worth figuring out what matters to you. Like, where do you actually feel best in the context of what you're trying to achieve? So for founders, and for me at least, which I can only speak for myself, is do I feel inspired, happy, and creative? Because without those things, I don't feel like I can do anything. Do I feel high energy? It's probably the best summary way to put it. So like, figure out what makes you tick. That might not be relevant to you. For you, it might be, I want somewhere where there's no distractions of partying, for example. So maybe I should go live in the countryside or the fucking hills. You might have an example, I don't know, what's important to you is being around people in the finance industry. So you're actually living in like central London in the city, for example, is great for you. Yeah, just be self-aware. And I figured that out for myself over the past few years. Like, sun is a huge one for me. It genuinely like raises my energy across the board, which therefore makes me more positive. And I think I'm a better founder and a better friend and a better fucking everything when I'm more positive, because I do have a dark side, which I don't like of myself, especially in a business context. And it helps me be more creative. So like, figure out what matters to you. Then figure out, like, I guess try a few fucking places. And, you know, styles of places within that. So whether it's a, you know, townhouse in London, a flat in London, a villa in Bali, whatever the fuck it is, I think you have to try living in a few places, especially when you're younger and early in your career, which for most people is like your 20s, your early to mid 20s, probably. That's the way I did it. And just traveling as well, not necessarily living in a place, but like I went to Dubai, I went to Bali, Barcelona, America, whatever, but went to loads of fucking places and got a feel beyond just what's on Instagram, on the internet, beyond just what other people say. I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in that respect. Like, I used to think I wanted to live in LA, for example. Then I went there a few times and thought, wow, this is a real shithole. In most of it, not all of it. And figured that probably wasn't for me. So yeah, figure out what matters to you, try a few places. And I think on reflection for me, a real important thing is like, invest in your environment. I guess what I mean by that is, don't think about the cost, don't only think about the cost of a place. And obviously this is all within reason and relative to your financial position, where your business is at, etc., etc. I'm not saying go and spend like your entire net worth on 1 month's rent. Like, obviously I'm not saying that. But I think just thinking about the cost of a place, which a lot of people, myself included, especially when I was earlier in my career and the business was smaller, etc., and hadn't even started or made any money in like my early 20s. I think you focus like entirely on the cost. And like, I remember saying to my mate, oh, we should move into this penthouse. Yeah, we're going to double our rent each or something. I forget what it was. And at the time that felt like a big deal. But I was like, no, we need to live here so we can level up. And like, it sounded stupid, but a few months later he said, wow, this was the best thing we ever did at the time. And obviously it's just a fucking flat in that case, but I think spending more money to curate and perfect an environment that you know is going to have an ROI for you personally in the context of what you're working on is absolutely well worth it, probably more than anything else in life beyond maybe your health or whatever. And actually I think it can even help health. And I mean, when I say like invest in it, I mean, I guess firstly, like if you're renting a place, buying a place, whatever it is, probably renting, like that's the first thing, but I also mean like how you actually build that environment. So like I think stupid things, which well, it might sound stupid, but even shit like a great fucking screen, right? Like I used to use a shitty PC monitor, like most people, I guess, no, it's no different. Then I invested, like wasn't like crazy expensive, but an Apple Studio display, which is like I think £1,600 or something, £1,800 with a stand. And that just made my work more enjoyable, especially when I started to design space goods and stuff, which I think was when I got it, because I was spending a lot of time looking at colors and stuff. And also just made me feel like a higher quality operator. And I know that's stupid, but I think little things like that do matter. I also think a great fucking chair, and I was too late on this one. I used to get real bad back pains, I still do sometimes, but not from the chair, but just in general. I used to have a shitty gaming chair when I was younger, then I got like a nicer Amazon one, and then like full sent it recently and got like a £1,500 Herman Miller one. And people say, oh, it's ridiculous, but how long do you spend on a chair, especially as a founder or anyone in a job, particularly founders? Probably 8-10 hours a day, maybe 12 hours a day. So being comfy helps you get more out of yourself, right? And there's obviously other examples of this, like fucking kitting out the flat with neon lights, which like had inspirational messages. Like I don't need to go into too much detail, but you know, invest in these things, knowing what you know about yourself, and I think you get a great ROI out of it. And yeah, if I had to go back to like, I think they're all as important as each other. I guess when you start, you ultimately have to pick this one first, right? The location, then you pick this, and then probably as a result, you end up with certain people around you. Or you can kind of do a blend, like, you know, you pick people to live with, you pick a place to live, and then you pick the physical place within that. I think once you've gone through a bit of trial and error on this stuff, is when you really get to the point where, as I did over this period, you know what matters to you, and what doesn't, and what gets the best out of you in the context of what you're trying to achieve. You've probably tried a few places, and then you can curate and invest in your environment that helps you go forward. And that's what I'm consciously thinking about more in the next stage of the business. And I guess applying this kind of high leverage, quality decision-making mentality to everything, and rather than trying to do everything, and like just work hard all the time, because that's kind of the mentality at the start. And I guess that applied to the way I thought about curating my environment or not at the start. And that mindset, you know, applies in every area, I think. So I don't know, fuck, it's late at night. I've been working like 13 hours today. I went to the gym. I was reflecting on this and I was like, you know what, I need to make a fucking video and get the iPad out. Closing message, I think you have the agency to fucking shape your physical environment, which I think on reflection is arguably one of the most important, if not the single most important, controllable factor in most people's lives. And they think they can't change it. They think they don't deserve to change it or whatever. But if you realize the impact of being in the right place at the right time, with the right people, and the right environment in general, especially for founders who I think are watching this, then you would not fucking think twice about optimizing that for yourself. So yeah, that's a reflection for me. Hopefully it resonates. Sorry for the waffle. This is meant to be a 10-minute video, but in my typical style, it's like nearly midnight right now. Yeah, just reflecting, rambling. On that bombshell, actually, final point, I will be revealing my new environment, which I've hopefully curated for the best for the next stage, and certainly the next few months, at least, or the next year. In a video, maybe one in a few weeks or a month or so, when it's fully ready to go. And you'll see what I mean, hopefully, and I'll talk a bit more then. But yeah, good to chat. Subscribe to the pod, check out all my links below, there's a few new things in there. And yeah, appreciate you watching. Boom.